It's 10 years and counting for the OSMOSIS conference. Cynthia Hetherington and her amazing team celebrate an impressive run of bringing the highest quality training in the open source community. This year, the best investigative minds are coming together at Planet Hollywood in Las Vegas on October 20th through October 22nd. Use code 24OSCON10 when you check out to save 10%. 24OSCON, the number 10. When you check out, save 10%. After 4 years of development, Scope Now is proud to announce the release of Grid. Grid combines OSINT with real-time physical data to achieve new levels of intelligence gathering. Grid supports over 50 data types and hundreds of thousands of sources. Upgrade your OSINT capabilities with Grid and elevate your intelligence team today at scopenow.com. Do you enjoy our podcast and the guests we bring you? Since 2019, Matt and his team have done their very best to give you amazing shows each week. If you feel like our show has helped you to be a better investigator, or maybe even inspired you to become an investigator, please let us know. We're looking for testimonials. Drop Matt an email with a recorded 20 to 30 seconds of you talking about this podcast. You can also email him something verbal about the website. His email is matthew.s@satellitepi.com. And if you really feel blessed for having this content, consider supporting Matt and our show by joining Investigators Toolbox. You really have to see version 2.0. And at just 49 cents a day, it's a no-brainer. Now let's jump in to this week's episode. We are back with a new show this week. We finish up looking at this year's OSMOSIS conference. We have 3 segments to feature today, and we know you're going to love this content. Up first, Emily Jensen. Her topic is Harnessing Location Intelligence, Advanced OSINT Techniques for Cyber Intelligence Investigators. So sit back and relax. OSMOSIS Con Review 3 starts now.
And welcome to the next segment of PI Perspectives, the OSMOSIS edition. We are coming to the finish line here. This will be our last episode, and we'll be highlighting a few more speakers, but I'm really, really excited. Before we even started recording this, our next guest, we were just going on and on. I said, hey, slow down. We need it for the episode. So Emily Jensen is joining us. Emily, welcome to the program.
Hi, thanks for having me here today. I'm really excited for this.
Yeah, no problem. So before we started recording, I'd asked you, had you been to OSMOSIS before? And you were there last year in New Orleans, and you had a unique perspective because you were involved with Skull Games, and you actually serve on the advisory board with them. So tell me a little bit about your background and your experience at the last OSMOSIS.
Yeah, thanks. I did. I got really excited when we started talking about things. So thanks for circling back on that. Quick nutshell, my background, I started in the Army, young 17-year-old, thinking I knew everything, worked as an intel analyst, did that for 8 years, and in the heart of the 2 wars, decided it was time to transition out and serve the government in a different way. So I started working as a consultant in the Pacific region for the Army and Special Operations, and then kind of just grew my career in that. At that time, we were working a lot with foreign partners in that region, and so we had to use a lot of unclassified information. In fact, I think we stood up one of the first Army, at least, open source capabilities before we knew what OSINT was or any of that. And we called it the Foreign Media Analysis Cell. We actually just had people that had language capabilities, that were good analysts, reading foreign press, translating it, and then writing a report on it. And that's kind of how we got started in OSINT. Grew that, and I started working a lot in the counter improvised explosive device arena, and so worked for the Pacific doing that for a few years with foreign partners, and then transitioned to DC doing that for what was then called JIDO COIC. Met so many great people there, mostly supporting special operations, but again, doing an early version of what we now would call OSINT or OSINT investigations. then called cyber counter ID analysis.
Right.
Took that and just really grew it into becoming an instructor for all different types of cyber investigations to special operation forces and supporting them. Did that for quite a long time, helped many organizations grow their own OSINT collection capabilities and analysis teams throughout the US government spaces and with partners. And then came to what I do now, which is more on the data side of things. And so leveraging unique data sets for OSINT investigations and capabilities.
That's
And
great.
then cool stuff on the side I get to do is the Skull Games stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So for folks who are not aware of what Skull Games is, why don't you break it down a little bit, what that organization does?
Yeah, absolutely. Skull Games is a counter human trafficking capability that works by, with, and through law enforcement to identify, recover victims, and put the bad guys away. So we
Right.
use OSINT techniques to be able to identify victims and then link them back to those that are trafficking them.
Sure.
So we're really doing the OSINT for good part with
Awesome.
how we do it. And we like to say counter, just want to really harp on that because we're not anti, we're counter, and that's really
Right.
important.
Yeah. It's more of a rescue mission type of deal. Um, yeah. And last year, like there was an actual event that went hand in hand with the OSMOSIS event down in New Orleans. For those who weren't there, you basically had a day of going out and doing counter intel with teams and things like that. So tell me a little bit about that and what the end result was.
Yeah, absolutely. We run multiple times a year what we call a task force event, and we get together in person and some virtually to just sit down, focus. We make a little bit of a competition out of it, and we put together investigative packages that we can turn over to law enforcement based off of leads from people that have been identified online as meeting the different marks of having being trafficked. And so those events are fantastic, amazing people we get together. And we did that for 2 days in New Orleans ahead of Skull Game or ahead of the Osmosis Con last year.
Osmosis, yeah. And if I recall, there was like an incredible number of packets that you produced to help rescue people, right?
Incredible amount. I can't even remember the actual number. We
I want to
do
say it was like 29, but I think it was more than that.
I think
Yeah.
it was more than that,
Yeah.
probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just incredible. And we're getting to be like the largest, organization we've ever been. I think our last monthly call, we had like 80 people on the line. It was incredible.
Fantastic. That's great. Well, you've definitely laid the background of who you are and what you do. Let's talk a little bit about what you're talking about. And again, this is going to be at Osmosis, October 20th to 22nd in Las Vegas at Planet Hollywood. It's the 10-year anniversary. But you're talking about harnessing location intelligence, advanced OSINT techniques for cyber intelligence. Let's talk about that. What's your plan to present here?
Yeah, absolutely. So the work I do now with Anomaly 6 is focused on location-based intelligence solutions. And so taking a really niche data set that comes from technical information, really, mobile devices and of all types, phones, tablets, all types of mobile devices that carry information that can receive advertising, and using that type of technical information to build out a location-based picture that can help support investigations.
Yeah.
So I want to bring that as a way to see that OSINT doesn't just mean social media, that there are other types of data out there that are legally compliant, privacy compliant, and commercially available to use as you're doing different types of OSINT investigations.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's definitely it's a hot topic. You're hearing a lot of that stuff, like in the investigative community. There are a couple of people that are really pushing that. Hey, we can do this. We have connections. It's a slippery slope. It's not that, hey, cell phone ping, we know exactly where you are. It's a little trickier than that. And when you try and unpack that and explain it to somebody, I know I have that challenge sometimes with the attorneys I'm working with, because they have an assumption of what it is, and the reality of it is it's not a unique identifier to the sense where it's going to tell you a specific person. It's like a breadcrumb, right? So you now have breadcrumbs that you need to pair together, and then you got to figure out a way to incorporate that intel in a way that's usable, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And we deal with that a lot. And that's one of the things I'm really hoping to bring to Osmosis Con is understanding better what it is, what it isn't, where the limitations lie, and starting to change the narrative around how we think about mobile advertising data in the intelligence world.
Right.
Just like you said, we're not giving away private information. We're not telling you who a person is or where a person goes. Literally, it's technical information from a device. And I think the more we can look at it that way, the better we'll be able to incorporate it. It's
Sure.
also commercially available. So while not publicly available and free, like some of the open source and other, techniques we use as practitioners, it is commercially available. And even our own government has come up with some really great definitions around what that means and how we can use it for different types of processes.
Yeah, I mean, another tool for the toolbox, right?
Absolutely.
Another way to approach something a little differently, and that's what's so great about this industry is the free thinking. And an event like Osmosis, where it's a meeting of the minds, right? So it's the best minds in the industry come together and start having these conversations, not only about technique but ethics, right? And
Yep.
I think where we come down the line with this type of technology, ethically, are we using it in a way that's responsible, that's going to protect privacy, because that is such a hot button issue here. You look at the national public data being released, and pretty much everybody's social security numbers out there now, with other identifying information. Um, we still need to have the ability to do what we're doing, in a way, that produces results. So, that's one of the great benefits. And you had spoken about your experience being at Osmosis last year, and something you pulled away from that it really inspired you to be more involved this year. Tell me a little bit about that.
Exactly. I just, last year being the first year that I went to Osmosis personally, and also the first time my company was there. It was the first time that our company had had a booth at an event like that.
Right.
And we knew walking away from that this was the type of event that we wanted to sponsor, that we really wanted to be a part of, and that we wanted to try to present and be a part of that community for, because sitting in the sessions, it's so unique from other events that we might attend, in the regard that you're learning something and you're not just hearing a demo about somebody's tool, or you're not hearing some senior official or politician with a canned statement about what they can say on OSINT and data and things, right? You're actually hearing practitioners' words about how they use this and how we might be able to use things better.
Yeah, it's great. And what I love is that the interaction, right? All right, now we're going to open it up for questions. And it's always like, okay, you sure about that? Because you may get a question or two that you're not going to be able to handle or field, but maybe somebody else in the crowd can do that, because I've seen that happen too. And then even if you're attending remotely, the person who's emceeing the event will make sure that those questions are asked as well, which is something that's great too. So you get that interaction and participation, even if you're not there in person. You have the ability to have your question answered. But I think that's one of the advantages to this event that I don't think is pushed enough, that people understand enough, that just that whole getting in the room with these folks that are really ahead of where everything is. It's really quite amazing, right, to see all that happen.
It is. I turn into a bit of a fangirl, I'll be honest, when I come there and signing up as a speaker, being accepted as a speaker this year. And I had some of my like favorite OSINT practitioners actually like asked me to be their friend on LinkedIn. And I turned into such a fangirl. Like, oh my gosh, I feel like I've made it in the world. I have these like amazing people like Ray Baker and
Yeah,
all these different practitioners that are so
that's
known
great.
in our
Yeah.
community. And I'm just awestruck and really
Yeah.
humbled that I get to be amongst them this year.
Yeah. Yeah. I kick back and I've known Cynthia, God, almost 20 years, which is crazy.
Mm.
Actually, probably over. I think I know Cynthia maybe 22 years. And just seeing how everything has expanded and it's really turned into its own thing. You know, even this whole OSINT association now or the institute,
Yeah.
it's great, really, really great that we're seeing these things come to the next level here, and it's just it's going to keep on going, right? Always leave it better than when you got here, and just let the thing become what it is just really impressive. So, what are you hoping that folks that attend your teaching? What are you're hoping that they come away with?
That's a great question. I think first and foremost, I'm hoping that people come away with a better understanding of what location data is, and that they're not so scared to use it. Then they can understand how to access it, the best ways to access it, and then how to incorporate it in their workflows for OSA investigations. And then I think second to that would really just be to understand how location intelligence can support the full breadth of OSINT investigations.
Mhm.
And then lastly, some of the limitations. It's not a perfect data set. It's not going to be a silver bullet for you. And so the more you can understand that, the better I think you'll know how to use it to your advantage.
Yeah, and that's one of the challenges that I've had using it so far, like on upper surgery cases, because it requires a lot of time, right? And time is money. So it's not a cheap solution, right?
Right.
And I always approach it like, hey, it may or may not. You're
Yep.
you're you're playing with house money here. It's something that certainly can help prove a theory, but if it can't, you got to be prepared to pay a price and not, it's just not going to answer that question. And they always say yes going in, but then when it doesn't happen, they're like, oof, like I spent all this money and I got nothing, right?
Right.
Which always a challenge as a business owner. You don't want to hear that. Or somebody who's assigned a task, from your supervisor, you don't want to hear that, right? We just wasted all these assets on this. But you almost have to, right? And there's a responsibility to do that, and you really can't control it. But conversely, I've seen it hit home runs too, like more than once, where there was a question of like trying to answer a question that this was the only way that that question was going to get answered. And I've seen some pretty amazing technology with this happen so far. So it's exciting. It's exciting to see where we're going in the industry, and it's why it's so important to come out like every year to things like this. And I always say it's like a broken record, right? This is the one conference I go to that I actually sit in on everything, and I try and consume as much as possible because I want to stay on top of it, even though my specialty is personal injury and why would I be there, right? It's like I want to know the technology that's out there to utilize in the event of there's something out there that I can use to my advantage. So highly, highly recommend it. So thank you so much for coming on and just giving us a sneak peek. I'm really, really excited actually to sit your class and learn a little bit. And again, it's the Osmosis conference. It's the 10th anniversary. It's going to be October 20th to the 22nd in Las Vegas at the Planet Hollywood. It's going to be a great time, a great way to network. It is available virtually if you can't make it in person. So definitely you want to go check it out and make sure that you're there, seeing everybody and doing so. Emily, thank you so much for coming on.
Awesome.
And
Yeah,
we're
thanks
gonna,
for having me today. And I look forward to seeing everyone in Vegas.
yeah, definitely, definitely. So sit tight, folks. We got another segment coming up, and we'll be right back. Take care.
Managing a team of investigators just got easier with TrackOps, the all-in-one case management software. Are you ready to enhance case flows and drive efficiency? TrackOps offers powerful management and coordination tools to streamline workflows and communication, all designed to keep your team synchronized and focused on the task at hand. With TrackOps, you can easily distribute workloads, track individual performance, and ensure deadlines are met. Plus, the TrackOps mobile app allows investigators to access case activities on the go. And the TrackOps video app allows for simple and consistent timestamping, all included at no extra cost. Start streamlining your investigation process today. Visit trackops.com for a free 15-day trial and experience the power of efficient team management. TrackOps, empowering teams, simplifying management. The Campbell Group has teamed up with PI Perspectives to offer listeners top-notch, affordable insurance solutions. Private investigators can get insurance for their business for as low as $305 per year. Apply now at piperspectivesinsurance.com and receive a quote back within 24 hours. Here we go with segment 2. OSINT expert Chris Polder is joining us again. Chris just finished hosting the OSINT Symposium down in Australia. The turnout was amazing, and now he'll be joining us in Las Vegas. Chris is speaking about prompt engineering for OSINT. Let's join the guys for segment 2.
And welcome to the next segment of PI Perspectives, the OSMOSIS edition. Today, we're going to talk to somebody we've talked to before, but man, every year I chat with him. This is a guy who's got his finger on the pulse of OSINT. And I remember him back in the day before he started this massive empire that he's got going on now. I'm so excited and so happy for you. Chris Polder, welcome back to the program. How are you?
Good. Thanks, Matt. I appreciate you having me, and always love being on the show. And this time of year, like we kind of talked about before, it's busy, and appreciate you taking the time to talk about some things.
Yeah. So you just finished the OSINT Combine. So let's talk about that. What was that about?
Yeah, so we host the Australian OSINT Symposium every year. This was our 5th year. It's something we wanted to bring down in Australia, 5 years ago, to develop public-private partnerships, raise awareness around what we kind of do in the OSINT space down here, but bring in international speakers so we can get the perspective and just really share that knowledge and that collaboration. And that's kind of what it's about. It's not a vendor type symposium. It's really just education based, and everything from strategic talks through to OSINT practitioners. And yeah, it's just a great time to be in Sydney each year as well, with everyone in the same spot.
Great. I think we were chatting, and our good friend Buddy Jericho was just there this year with you, right?
Yeah, he keynoted a great speech on some historical wins of just where that inflection point of OSINT can often break the case. He was talking about some particular counterterrorism work offshore, and then just flexing into a little bit of what's happening in the generative AI space and some of the opportunities and challenges.
Yeah, Buddy's really embraced that AI. I feel like he was like one of the first guys to the game saying, okay, I see something here, and like we got to make sure that we're using this to the best of our ability, and we're doing everything that we can do with it. And he was on the forefront of talking about it and teaching people. And I remember having some great conversations with him about that. And he's tied in with OSMOSIS, and he's a big time supporter, Skull Games, and all that other good stuff. But I mistakenly called your event the OSINT Combine, and that's the name of your business. The symposium is what you were doing. So I'm going to fall on my sword for that one and say, Matt, you did do your homework. So let's talk about the Combine, because that's your business. That's your model, and what it started off as and what it is now are two different things. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So we started as a training organization initially, fundamental, tool agnostic, tradecraft, really building that fundamental capability and trying to lift what we're doing down here in Australia, and now we do it internationally from that training perspective, and supporting, there's a lot of great trainers out there, and we're putting our lens on it a little bit from a military background, but then kind of expanded it from there. But then as we're kind of going, wanted to create greater scale and efficiency. So built a software platform, Nexus Explore, which is our flagship platform. It's an all-in-one OSINT SaaS solution that's used all around the world. And we've kind of expanded significantly on the back of what we've done in that space, and whilst maintaining the training side. And then we have a strategic data program as well. And I guess in that kind of trinity is what we consider, and where we consider ourselves is an organization that develops enduring OSINT capability within organizations. And we can kind of, work with them across whether that's, training, software, or some of their strategic needs that they might have. So yeah, it's been great. Like I said, team all around the world, 5 different countries, customers in many touch points in the world. So it's been a wild ride.
It's been great, man. And like I mentioned before, like I met you before you started doing all that stuff, man. It's like to see what it's turned into. Like I can't wait to talk to you next year and be like, you're doing what? How did that happen? It's crazy. It's crazy.
No, I've got a great team full of great people, and it's been amazing.
That's what it comes down to, right? It's the team, it's the people, it's the relationships that you build in the industry, right? It's the year after year going to the OSMOSIS conferences and things like that, and connecting and finding like-minded people that are into the things that you're into, and are willing to have those discussions. It's kind of been the theme here the whole time that we've been interviewing people. It is that the networking aspect to it, of the talking through things, the open discussions that take place when you're there in person within the crowd. We always joke, it's like, as a presenter, one of the things that you're nervous about is the Q&A section, because you could get called to the carpet, and there are definitely people in the crowd that know more than you do.
Yeah,
it just happens. It's part of it, but it's healthy for that to happen, right?
I think so. I think any profession, and particularly in ours, having those robust discussions where you can be challenged, and we can have good conversations on trying to find a path forward. And we don't always have to agree on everything, but it's just about sharing ideas and how we can all benefit from that. And one of the beautiful things about the OSINT community is we really do come together to share those ideas without an agenda. It's it's really just supporting each other. And to your point, like, the in-person conferencing is always amazing. And we kind of went through the COVID years, and everything was remote, but you just can't beat in person. And we love coming to OSMOSIS every year. It's a fantastic conference, and certainly looking forward to a good hit out in October.
Sure, man. And it's 10 years, which is crazy. I had a lot more than when we started. So let's talk about prompt engineering for OSINT, because that's your topic. That's what you're talking about. Break that down for me. What can people expect from that class that you're doing?
Yeah, so it's going to be, as we kind of evolve, and we'll talk about, Buddy's been a great thought leader in this as well, is what is the normalization of some of these skills? So the talk's going to kind of dial us back to, we used to go to, or we still do, we absolutely should still do, all your Google advanced searching, your Boolean searching, you learn advanced query stuff. Gen AI and what we're kind of doing in that space, and where that technology is going, is critically important to normalize it as a skill set, because understanding how to use it, and particularly prompt engineering, if you equate it to advanced keyword searching, that is a skill, and whether people like it or not, the technology is moving at such a pace, it's embedded in our society. We need to keep our skills up. So this talk is going into beyond just how you can ask a question and maybe not get the results you're looking for. How can you start to direct prompt engineering in the use of Gen AI to get more out of your results, to focus in on what you want to do, and then extend that beyond the prompt? So using retrieval, augmented generation, fine-tuning models, it's all those advanced techniques. So we're going to cram a lot into the talk to at least start to have people think about what are the skills they should expect to learn on future OSINT courses or in classes, on top of what they're already learning. So the key thing there is we're not discarding anything. We're just building new skills so we're ready for the future. And then I'll go through some of the challenges around disinformation at a macro perspective, but then at a micro perspective. So I will be, and I won't give too much away, going into some deep fake stuff, some examples of how that barrier to entry for threat actors is almost gone now, and what that really means for us for identity theft and fraud and all those sort of different aspects in this challenging space. And then kind of touching on the biggest concern that the World Economic Forum latest report has kind of put out is misinformation and disinformation is going to supersede global warming as one of the key areas of concern for people moving forward. And we'll go into a little bit of that in the talk.
Sure. I mean, listen, elections allegedly are front and center for all that stuff, right? If you read the news,
Absolutely.
that's one of the things we're dealing with. And I think it's important to identify the front lines, right? As somebody that's in the information community, knowing, where that next hotspot is going to be, or what to focus on, having those advanced skills that really take you to the next level and lets you achieve that goal, to solve that problem, tackle that issue. That comes by repetition, and it comes by learning and discussing and exercising and making yourself better, having the forward thinking with one another to do it. That's why I love this community, man, because it's a living and breathing, right? Every year it's something new, it's something different. And even the things that were cutting edge last year are yesterday's trash this year. It's like, oh, really? Just talk about that again? Like, oh, it's not another one. But that's exciting. It's taking it to the next level. So, like, what do you see that's coming down the pipeline? Like, what are we going to be talking about at the OSMOSIS Con year 11? What do you think?
Year 11, I think the threat landscape is going to increase. So the key thing I think is the reinforcement of how important the actual analyst and the human in the equation is. One of the things which is the common theme at the moment is Gen AI replacing jobs and requirements. It's actually the opposite. It's so critical to have an analyst who understands this technology to work in it. And if we just focus on the disinfo for a sec, it's being generated at such a scale now with these advanced technologies. The analyst needs to be able to combat that by looking at it with their own eyes and their own analytical tradecraft. But they need to be able to understand the technology for how it kind of reached that point, because that's just going to assist them. It's like, if you look at it from a military perspective, you don't ignore the weapon systems that an adversary might have. You understand them, you learn them, whether they relate to how you're going to employ them. But you really need to get into them to understand it, so you can better equip yourself to work in this space. And then on the back of that is just being ready for what's next. And like you said, we'll learn new things, and they'll be yesterday's trash, in short order. I don't think that's the case with Gen AI. I think it's one of those ones where it's going to be embedded, but it opens up doors to all sorts of threats in the future. Things like synthetic biology and what that might mean for bioterrorism, and all those sort of different aspects. Obviously, there's a lot of work being done in quantum, and a lot of this will start to change. I think the threat landscape, but also how an analyst is going to work in the data environment, given where that's kind of going.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And we'll take it one step further here, right? So you're talking about being able to analyze this and be familiar with it. But I would take it one step further and saying having the ability to explain it to somebody else, right? So having the ability to explain to a juror, having the ability to explain it to your supervisor, to whoever's in charge of the operation, in a way, right? So one of the most important things I think as a researcher is that you're mining this intelligence, but it has to be actionable. And what does that mean, right? So it has to be able to be consumed by whoever it is you're talking to, that it's going to solve the issue, whether it be a legal issue or a strategical issue. If you're not able to explain how you got from one part to the other, you're not understanding it fully. So I think the people that are successful in doing this have grasped that ability to not only understand, but the ability to explain it in layman's terms, that the everyday person is going to understand what you're trying to do, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That explainability is a critical part of intelligence, right? And so I think, equipping yourself with that understanding so you can talk through where it is, and explain what the gaps are if you've got to a certain outcome, and like to your point, explaining to decision makers in succinct terms of where a outcome might have come from, and then being able talk about the risk of making decisions on the back of that particular outcome. So yeah, explainability is absolutely critical. And that's one of the challenges we have in the AI space at the moment is what is that level of explainability? And if you look at it from a surface level, it's very easy to dismiss it. But I kind of feel that's a bit of a head in the sand approach. You really need to dive in and understand where it does add value, where it doesn't add value, but more importantly, understanding how fast this is moving and getting yourself ready for the future. Because if you ignore it till it's ready, you're going to turn around and be obsolete. And I think that's important. It's kind of if you look at the way basic searching has evolved, the way translation has evolved with NLP over the years. It might have started off rough, but what the pace at which this is evolving, we've got to be ready, and to do that, you've got to keep up.
Yeah, and it's like understanding it in a way that it'll be understood legislatively, right? Policy, when policy is set, like you want the lawmakers to understand what we're doing and what's out there, right? And we have the ability to protect our rights to do what we're doing, right? Which is why it's so important that there are these associations that are popping up, whether it be testing or having the certifications like the Osmosis Institute, having a certified program. It's just adding credibility, to what we do, so legislators understand it, and then judiciary, that they understand what we're doing, right? That all these things. How did you get there? And that, to me, that was like one of the biggest challenges in the beginning. Is the people that were the decision makers, the people that were setting policies on these things, didn't really understand it completely, didn't want to grasp it, right? They were a child of a certain era that, hey, they landed on the moon and that was amazing. But, now the computers that can do all that stuff are the size of a thumbnail, but nobody wants to talk about that, right? So, it's crazy to see how far it's come and where we're going. And again, another reason why, like, if you're serious about being in this industry and being successful in this industry, you have to invest your time into going to conferences like this. You have to invest your capital in whatever cost it is to get there. You need to make the sacrifice to get there, to really be the very best at doing this. And the only way to do that is to get in a room with guys like yourself, have these discussions, have somebody in the crowd correct you when they need to, and just go forward, right? Have a good conversation. And I'm joking about all that. I mean, but that is that level of people that are there, and the respect that everybody has for one another. It's great.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And to what you kind of captured before, people in the crowd are going to know more than you about often what you're talking about. But that incites, good conversations, pushing more research and really just exploring ideas that you might not have thought about. And that's what I love about, Osmosis and all the conferences is, like we get to learn these little bits, and you might sit in an hour lecture, but it's the 5 or 10 minutes that you kind of take out of that as, hey, what are the things I need to learn next? Because I don't know anything in that space. And so, it's very rare that you kind of sit in one talk and it's an hour of new information. It's all the little snippets along the way. And I kind of equate it to, you read a 300-page book, only 30 pages are probably of relevance, but those 30 pages are so critical, you had to read all 300 to get to the next step of what you want to do, to get the context that surrounds it. So, I think it's a super interesting space.
Sure. And I think you touched on something before that was important. I want to come back to that. And that's the human element in all this, right? That's not going anywhere. There's always going to be a need for it. No matter how much machine learning there is there, you cannot replicate the way a human thinks. I don't care what anybody says, and that deduction ultimately, to decide like what is actionable and what isn't actionable. I don't think that's replaceable. I don't think it'll ever be replaceable. And I think those of us that are successful in this industry and doing this have understood that. And we're embracing technology and not trying to tamp it down and keep it from taking our jobs, because that's not going to happen, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's the idea behind human machine teaming. And ironically, it's something that we talk about now with the AI stuff, to with a little bit of trepidation around what's it going to replace. But we've been doing human machine teaming, as long as computers have existed. We get technology, it supports the human in what we're trying to do. It's a coupling effect, and if it creates efficiency in one area, it allows the human to go and do more in another space. And if time's the biggest commodity that we all have, then I think, the more we can do to create more time, to give us more time to think, like you said, like a human, is critical. And that's where we've got to find the balance. There's often a big delta between knowledge gaps of, say, policymakers and practitioners, which is competing with the pace of change of the technology. And they don't often, align perfectly, and we just got to accept that. And I think part of being professionals is we work through to make that as seamless as possible, but understand the challenges, and we have good discussions around it. So we're equipping ourselves for the future.
Awesome. Well, we're going to wind down here because I don't want to steal all the thunder from this awesome presentation that's going to take place in a couple of weeks. So we're talking about the OSMOSIS conference. It'll be in Las Vegas at Planet Hollywood from October 20th to the 22nd. It's not too late to sign up and take advantage. And maybe you can be the smartest person in the room if you make it there, right? I know I won't be the smartest person in the room. I'll ask a lot of questions, but I'm definitely not going to be the smartest person. Chris, thank you so much for jumping on and always being gracious with your time and sharing. And I really, I'm so happy with where you've come and how you've taken these ideas and just run with them and surrounded yourself with some amazing people. And I want to thank you for the contributions you've made to the industry and what you've done. It should not go unnoticed. The great products that you and your team are putting out. So thanks for coming on.
No, thanks, Matt. I appreciate you having me on the show, and looking forward to seeing everyone in Vegas in under a month now, which will be amazing.
Yeah, it'll be a couple of weeks. We'll be out there and catching up, and really, really looking forward to it. So, everybody, hang on. We've got one more segment before we close it out, and sit tight, and we'll be right back.
Check out the PI Institute of Education at piinstitute.com. Since 1989, Kelly Riddle has been teaching on subjects such as surveillance, nursing home investigations, insurance fraud, domestic investigations, hidden assets, and accident scene investigations. The PI Institute of Education is a featured learning partner in the investigatorstoolbox.com. So check out the free content on the site, then visit the Institute for more great savings on additional classes. Are you drowning in fees with your current provider? IRB Search offers the highest quality data at the most competitive prices. Founded by investigators for investigators, IRB is tailored specifically toward helping you close your cases. We're currently offering PI Perspective listeners an exclusive 30-day free trial of our system. So simply go to irbsearch.com and apply using the promo code PIP30 to claim this promotion. Over the past year, our industry has been the target of foreign governments and agencies that have attempted to recruit unsuspecting investigators to gather intelligence or immediate expatriates. PI Perspectives is teaming up with the Federal Bureau of Investigations to get the word out about this ongoing crisis. If you've been contacted by an individual or company that might seem suspicious, please contact the FBI at tips.fbi.gov. You can also contact the New York field office at 212-384-1000 to report suspicious activity in any state. The link is also in the show notes. Even if you completed a job and it still doesn't sit right with you, you can report this activity. The only way to stop this trend is to work together. So let's do it. Satellite Investigations has launched its new website full of great new content. Matt and his team have released some great informative blogs. Make sure you log in to LinkedIn and follow Satellite Investigations for the latest content. And we're hitting the finish line with a tag team. We welcome Amber and Kirby. If you're in the OSINT world, these two need no introduction. They're talking about app data residue. So sit tight and learn exactly what that is. Here's Matt and our two amazing guests.
And welcome to the next segment of PI Perspectives, the OSMOSIS edition. Today, we're looking at some of the speakers for the upcoming OSMOSIS con that's coming up in Las Vegas on October 20th to 22nd in Planet Hollywood. We're getting a 2-for-1 here on this segment because apparently they're doing a segment together. And if you've been to Osmosis before, you're going to be very excited, like I am. And if you haven't, you're in for a treat. So we've got Kirby and Amber. Welcome back. How are you guys?
Good. Good.
Good. And we have some dogs too. So
Yeah.
and some guests. So Kirby, why don't we get into your background a little bit? Tell folks what you do and how you got to where you're at.
Sure. I started off in the U.S. Army as an Arabic linguist, and originally doing signals intelligence. While I was in the Army doing that, I would send out like kind of a roundup of everything that was kind of going on in our AOR to our linguists. And so when I left there, I went to Defense Intelligence Agency for open source intelligence, and at that point was trying to find more counterproliferation kind of information online.
Sure.
This was about 2003, kind of the dawn of social media, and really it kind of opened my eyes when I saw how much material was getting put up online just by the average person, and how that could be useful for, a lot of different purposes. But at the point right there, I was thinking intelligence. Then I was recruited to an innovation center for another agency where I worked for a little while, but meanwhile, people were asking me for classes. So I rolled together my company. I left the innovation center in 2014, so 10 years away from that now. And pretty much I do a lot of training for open source, whether it's social media or the different apps, that sort of thing, as well as some investigations for, law enforcement, intelligence, global security companies, including some lawyers and their PI organizations as well.
Yeah, wow. I can't believe it's been 10 years already.
Well, my company's been at 16, but it's 10 since I stepped away from the Government Innovation Center.
Wow. Yeah. We've been around, and you pretty much have been to every osmosis. I think that's done.
Most
right?
of them.
Most of them, right? Save one or two. How about you, Amber?
I think I've been to all of them.
You've been to all of them. Well, tell people who you are.
Well, I'm the CEO of Peregrine Corporation. We're a digital forensic technology company, and we do consulting as well. But I'm kind of taking a different perspective. I use OSINT in my investigations when I start doing consulting work, because obviously that's seeing the full picture of things. That's actually why Kirby and I got together to think about what we were going to do with this. I'm obviously a dog lover as well. This is another full-time job. You can see them in the background. But I've been doing digital forensics for over 30 years, and I've owned my company for 25. So we both have an entrepreneurial spirit to share as well when it comes to doing digital investigations professionally. So.
Yeah, and that's part of the spirit of Osmosis. I think when Cynthia first had the idea of putting this together, it's getting like-minded professionals, people that do have that entrepreneurial skill, and like, let's help each other get better at what we do and succeed more in business, right? So you have that crowd education thing going on, and it's taken off like weeds, like wildfire, and just grown into something cool.
Yeah, I would say that even the people who aren't entrepreneurs, when they go to the conference, it's because they want to improve themselves. They want to improve their skills. They may not be entrepreneurs for themselves out there, but they're entrepreneurial in their own organizations. Even.
Oh, absolutely. I think you make a good point, right? So these are people that are movers and shakers that want to be the very best at what they do. And it is that kind of spirit of, I've got a task at hand and I want to learn new ways to do things and cool and different ways to do things. And, just seeing how that all works. So before we jump into the subject of what you guys are going to be chatting about, I mean, both of you have been to many osmoses, and what would you say is like the best thing that you can take away from attending? Kirby, you can go first.
Definitely the people. I mean, the presentations are awesome. You're going to learn a lot of stuff. You're going to be wowed and excited. But the best thing is those connections you make there. One of the things that I've noticed going to that conference is you have the highest caliber of other people who are really excited and like innovators in what we're doing, and the best people to kind of bounce heads against.
Definitely. How about you, Amber?
I agree. And I'm a natural introvert. So the fact that I actually enjoy the networking at Osmosis says a lot, because normally that's sheer torture for an introvert to go to a conference and have to network. I'm like, oh, I'm so bad at this and I hate talking to people. It's so scary. But Osmosis,
you love what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's like, oh,
Mhm.
but because everyone's passionate about the topic, and I actually think it's a little more welcoming. I don't know if that's makes sense, that there's a lot less like walking around like mean girls or any of that, that it's like,
Yeah.
it's nice, it's friendly, and it's experts gathering, or
Yeah.
people who are passionate. I guess it's more, I'm going to say the passion, since Kirby took the expert, I'm going to say the passionate people about this field.
Yeah.
Getting
I-
together and talking.
I think you guys both make really good points here. So, like for me, I think like for the most part, and this is not 100%, but for the most part, egos are checked at the door,
Mhm.
right? So, we're all pretty good at what we do. We're successful enough that we can take the time off to go to these conferences, and which are all over the place, right? So the ability to get there, but for the most part, every person I've had interaction with, and I've interviewed so many speakers, and I've gone to so many of these things. There is that welcoming attitude, and that whole like, hey, wow, like show me how you do it. How did you solve this problem? Let's brainstorm. And it's been pretty awesome to see the same people over and over coming back and seeing how their careers have really taken off, or they've pivoted and gone in a completely different direction. And you're like, whoa, that's pretty neat. But being able to see that community, right? I think, both of you touched on that, right? Just that sense of this is who we are. Some of us are introverts, some of us are extroverts, but just that kindness and respect, right? There is, again, for the most part, there's respect amongst the individuals there. And that's something that I really enjoy as well.
The judgment-free zone, I think, is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
That's so nice.
And how welcoming those experts are to newcomers.
And I was going
Right.
to kind of mention on that, like you might be a
Yeah.
speaker, but you're expecting to learn from everybody you meet.
For sure. I've seen some speakers struggle too,
Mhm.
just not realizing that,
People in the
someone's going to
crowd,
raise their
like,
hand and ask questions, and I may
hard
not have an
questions.
answer to those questions.
Mhm. Yeah.
I've seen that. And then I've seen somebody else answer that question in the
Mhm.
presentation. And that's part of the awesomeness
Mhm.
of having community like that. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, no, I know the answer to that one, and I'll put my 2 cents in.
Yeah.
Seeing that happen is pretty awesome too.
Yeah.
It's definitely, it's grown to the point where there's that consistency, and you kind of know what you're getting into, and it has kind of morphed a little bit. I think, moving away from the everyday investigator and more towards, folks that do research. So it's open like for everybody,
Mhm.
no matter what you do. If you have that bug for investigating and trying to figure things out and doing desktop research, or doing digital forensics or things like that, like this is the place for you. So, yeah, you can't fail. It's always a good experience. So let's talk about the topic here: app data residue from device to public data, sticky sources for intelligence. That's a mouthful. So, Amber, why don't you break it down for me? We'll get your take on that first.
You can hear all of the excitement of my dogs over our topic as well. So it all works. It's really about taking two perspectives when you look at where everyone spends their time, which is in an app or in some type of service. And because of it, we came together and we're like, okay, Kirby is taking that OSINT side of it. I'm taking kind of the digital forensic residue side of it. And we're seeing what that data brings together. And I think it's super important for people to look at that in general, but we're not going to look at like Instagram. It's like, okay, we've done it to death. We don't need to do that. We're going to go for the weird stuff. We're going to go for the ones that are maybe that redheaded stepchild of the app world that gets used by the darker side of things, or in particular interest areas that maybe people don't always look at for their investigation. And they're kind of like, oh, I've hit the primes. Now I'm going to just be done and finish it. But this is the good stuff. This is, it's the residue. I forgot we put residue in our topic header. It really is the residue of it.
This is a family program. Come on.
Oh, yeah.
Even though it's Vegas. we're gonna leave that alone right there. I mean, these are good points, right? How far into research is enough, right? And knowing that, what else is out there, what other tools, what other techniques are available to me that maybe I haven't considered, that could completely alter, the investigation and how you're going to continue and where you're going to continue, right?
It's crazy when you start thinking about how people spend their time. It's like 98% of the time you spend online, besides work time, is all in some type of app or subscription service, because that's really how, it's not like people go outside. That's crazy talk. They're in something that they're passionate about. And a lot of those are in the back room level of passions. So
sure. And guess what? They're collecting data.
Absolutely.
They're getting
I
loads
wanted to
and
add
loads
something
and
as well.
go ahead.
To what she said before, like sometimes the app comes to you, that your case is going into this app. And one of the things we also want to highlight is that app comes out of the blue, you can deal with it. There are methods of dealing with it, and you're going to see Amber's side of the method and my side of the method, but it doesn't matter what app comes up, you can deal with it.
Yeah. There's always like somebody, there's architecture there, right? Somebody needs to build it. And if there's a way to build it, there's a way to take it apart, right?
Exactly.
always.
Common sense, kind of work your way back.
Mhm.
And it can be very intimidating as well too, right? Where do I begin, and how do I achieve, that process, and what would you recommend to somebody, Kirby, who's jumping into this, that where to start so they're not completely overwhelmed?
Well, I think that again, we're going to show I have a methodology that I will show as we go along. But one of the things is, first thing is, you probably need a research phone to do this. And I know that, or a research device. And I know that Amber's going to show us, what you see on that research device in her way, and how I use that research device to see what information I can pull out of it, either on mobile or even on the regular web, just based on what I see inside the device.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's two different perspectives of how to look at things.
Absolutely.
And that's the great part of this conference, right? Just bringing it all together.
We're hoping we'll get both workflows too. So people get to take, I like this about Osmosis, you take back actionable information you can use. It's not just, oh, that was fantastic, it was fun. It's like, no, this is actionable methods you can now implement in your investigations from both an OSINT and digital forensic side. And I think that's part of why Kirby and I were like, oh, we're like peanut butter and jelly coming together on this. It totally works.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, right? So the teaching is being actionable, and that you're actually learning how to do things. There's like such incredible value there. And sometimes people think like, oh man, it's like, that's a big lift for me to get there. Like I'm going to be like spending a bunch of money, and it's just a time commitment. Like, I don't know if I want to do it. But what you don't realize is that the value of there, if you really think about it, like, what's the value I'm walking away with here? We were just spent 10 minutes talking about it, right? The community, that ability to really be in the room with somebody that's going to make you better at what you do. That interaction, the fact that the courses are available even after the event, that you can go back. So it's not just that I'm going to log in, I'm going to take this class, and I'll learn, I'll take notes. Maybe I'll have the opportunity to ask some questions, probably not. But here you're in an environment, in a room where there'll be multiple answers to questions that may be the same, maybe different. Maybe there'll be presenters that show you two different ways to do things, right? This is the value that you take away from that people don't realize. You can't really, you have trouble like trying to justify you not going, right? If you have the means to get there and you're really serious about what you're doing, being the very best at it, you almost have to go, right?
Yeah, and if you can't go in person and enjoy getting to interact live, I think it's nice that they offer the virtual side too.
Sure.
So, hey, if you can't go halfway around the world to get to Osmosis, you can watch it virtually. And I think that's a big benefit. And that you get the recordings after, because I like to watch content over and over again in case I miss something the first 2 times, whatever it may be.
Go back and refresh yourself 100%. Especially if you hit a wall on your project, like, what else can I do here? And it's just that the sense of community, like the value in that, people don't really realize that. So I know we've covered a bunch of things here. Amber, what is the most important thing that you hope somebody attending the class will walk away with?
I'm hoping they walk away with an addition to their workflow. because that was our whole goal, get rid of the intimidation side of it because tech changes so fast. I mean,
Right.
just since we started, we've had to adjust like 3 times. And we'll like message each other, like, have you heard of this one? What about this one and this one? And I think getting an adjustment to have that workflow being able to adjust with the curves of technology is so important.
Sure. Sure. How about you, Kerb?
So I kind of agree that it's got to be, that they lose the intimidation on dealing with new apps, new social media, new whatever, that they realize there are safe ways to learn about these and figure out how to get your work done.
Yeah. I mean, every year there seems to be like a theme, an underlying theme of things. I think last year was more methodology, right? The toys are always going to change, but the techniques need to be the same, and there's an AI aspect to it this year. How do we work with it and not be intimidated by it? Spoken to a couple of speakers about that. And I think honestly too, like I was thinking about this today with this whole, national public data breach thing that's out there. And, it's the political season. We're knee deep in it, right? So you're going to start hearing some rumblings from Congress and politicians that are trying to get elected, like, oh, we got to curb the ability for this information to be out there, right? So I think an attack on how we do things, what databases we use, it's coming, and I feel like probably next year we're going to be talking about like, okay, this one's not available anymore, that's not available anymore, how do we continue to eat, and continue to do it? So I'm seeing something here that it's concerning me a bit. Another reason why it's important to learn how to do what we do in different ways, right?
Yeah, I think that we've gone through some different phases of different kinds of tools getting shut down and different databases or new things showing up and that sort of thing. I just say, we can adjust. And again, maybe the theme is lower the intimidation on all this different new stuff so that people realize that when their favorite tool gets shut down, okay, adjust.
Yeah.
Pivot.
So I'm gonna throw a curveball at you guys because I'm curious. I'm kind of spitballing here. Yeah, here we go. So we're talking about app and app data, and we're seeing little snippets of people in the industry that are saying like, hey, we can do locates based off of applications, right? So the apps are collecting data and they're spitting it back, and we can't tell you that it belongs to so and so. That we gotta hide their actual identity and all that, but their unit, the actual phone itself, has a unique ID number that we're able to identify that person. Kirby, what's your thought on that kind of technology and the usefulness of it?
So there's so much of it, actually, different ways that I think what you're mostly talking about is like the marketing or
Yes,
the marketing data or the stuff from the actual builders being sold in as data. And so my thoughts on that are kind of mixed. I mean, for investigative purposes, I think it's amazing. Everything can get tracked, where you have somebody who's a murderer. You are not anonymous. I don't care if you are off the grid.
Right.
There's a bunch of cameras
Amber
down
taught
the road.
about that years ago, the Internet of Things.
Yeah, exactly. So I love it for that reason. But then also, I would like to get off the grid, apparently, now and then. So it's definitely a mixed bag of feelings on that.
How about you, Amber?
It's very Minority Report feeling. I don't know if you guys saw that old movie, but it's so interesting to see that come into reality and now see that shaping. Like you brought up some of the changes that will happen with different databases that we can access. But because like in the United States, we don't have a blanket privacy law, it's been fascinating to see the shifts that are happening as you get different emails from people saying our privacy policy has updated, our privacy policy is updated. And that's because we're seeing that happen. And it's because they're seeing Minority Report in real life. I know after we finish talking, my phone that's sitting here on my desk is totally going to change what it's marketing.
Yep.
Absolutely, because it's listened to us and we haven't dropped a whole lot of unique words, but it's going to be like, oh, let me pull out OSMOSIS and I'm going to get a mixed bag of that and whatever it may be. And that's just the new world we're living in. I think it's why we're taking it down in our presentation to ingredient level, if you want to think of it like that, because you can't just sit and look at the completed recipe all the time and be like, oh, yes, it was a chocolate cake. It's not chocolate. It's actually a faux chocolate. You've got to get into those
Coffee.
pieces.
It's always
I know, it's
coffee.
not a cake, it's made out of cardboard.
Yes. Yeah. It's like being able to do that, I think, is where the future of our skill sets lie, because it's getting so, I don't know, overblown with fakeness of what you're actually finding and doing and all of that. It's too minority.
Well, we're going to get messages about moving and storage now, because Kirby just said cardboard. So
there we go.
screwed.
That and Minority Report, and they're going to be like, reports, or go watch this movie.
Right. I'm sure the Church of Scientology is going to start sending us stuff.
Oh, now you've done it. You've
Guys.
mentioned that.
Now we're definitely getting ads
Now
for
we're in
that.
trouble.
Oh man.
Maybe we should just bag this episode. Just throw it in the can.
It's too late.
They're still listening, right?
Mhm.
We joke about it, but it's crazy. I think if 5 or 6 years ago we said, "Hey, this is going to be the reality," no way, not in this country. But this is what's coming. I feel like a lot of businesses too are looking at GDPR and what's going on over in Europe, and it's almost like they're setting themselves up for, okay, we know we're eventually going to have to adapt these policies. Like it's going to make its way over the pond, and then we're going to have something in place too. So I see it coming, definitely.
Yeah, I already had to adjust my policies for it because I have international clients. So it's like now everything has to be compliant for that. We'll make it easy to adopt in the US because so many companies already have to do it. It's actually produced more data for us as investigators, believe it or not, by having stronger policies. It makes it so organizations have to retain more data about you. So I think that's kind of a bonus.
Yeah. There's always a silver lining to that cloud. Okay, so we're going to wind the sneak peek up here because we don't want to give away too much of the meat and potatoes. I just I want to get food ads coming to me, so I'm just throwing it out there. So the OSMOSIS conference, if you go to osmosisinstitute.org, you can get information on it. Planet Hollywood, October 20th to the 22nd. It is worth the investment to make yourself better at what you do. And I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen to so many people, even the younger folks, that were there. They were like new jacks when they got there, and 3 or 4 years later, you're seeing them, and there's like striding with the confidence and it's exciting.
Writing books,
right? Yeah, winning awards.
Yeah, winning awards. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. It's so cool to see it as a living, breathing community, kind of doing its thing. So, you guys are a big part of that. Really, there is legacy involved here, and I think it's so fitting that on the 10th anniversary that you guys are involved, because you have been such a big part of that, and it's appropriate. So
I'm excited to be part of the 10th. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you for making yourself available. I do appreciate that. And we're going to wind the segment down here. I think this is probably going to be the last segment. I'm still kind of figuring it out, but this may be the last segment before the conference. So this is your last chance to go there and check out the conference out in Las Vegas. So I'll see you guys in a couple of weeks, and we'll go from there.
See you in Vegas.
Absolutely. Very excited.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and checking out this whole series. And I hope it has inspired you to take the leap and either come virtually or come in person. So thanks, everyone. Have a good day, and we'll chat with you guys soon.
Thanks for checking out the show. We hope you give strong consideration to sign up for this year's OSMOSIS program. Visit osmosisinstitute.org to sign up. Do not forget the discount offer. You can find it in the show notes. We'd like to thank Campbell Insurance Group for sponsoring our show. Remember to tell them you listen to save $50 when you apply for insurance. Additional thanks to TrackOps, Scope Now, IRB, and the PI Institute for Education for sponsoring our podcast. Also, don't forget about the investigatorstoolbox.com, where you can type in Perspectives 50 to save $50 when you join up. Please follow Matt and Satellite Investigations on LinkedIn, and if you have a question or a comment about the show, just email Matt at matthews@satellitepi.com. You can also find him on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. We'd like your feedback to bring you the best shows possible, and we'll be back next week with a new show. So make sure you tune in. Stay safe out there.